Thank you for all for joining this Glencoe Health webinar this morning. We're going to go through our middle school and high school programs. And I know I have some new users in the program and maybe some users that have been using this program for a while. I saw in the chat that some of you might be elementary school teachers. Just know that we're going to cover today grades 6 through 12. That is our Glencoe iScience program. You see the book covers on the screen here. Yours probably look very similar to this. And our high school science program as well, which have book covers that look like this. We'll do a quick program overview. If you're new to the program, I'll give you an idea of how the program is laid out and how a lesson flows and what kind of labs are found within the program 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. But the majority of our time is going to be spent online. How to navigate the platform. Where do you find these labs and resources and activities? And maybe even how do you create a test from scratch to be able to send to students to be able to take on, let's say, their laptop or their Chromebook. We'll try to cover as much ground as we can in an hour's time. So let's go ahead and begin. Our program is available in print, as you saw those book covers just a few moments ago. Our program is also available digitally through a ConnectEd platform that we're going to explore today. So let's begin in the program. How do we engage students? Well, every single chapter in the middle school programs begins with what we call a Page-Keeley probe. It's an opportunity to uncover misconceptions, and it's a scenario that we want students to consider and choose who do they agree with the most, why, and why. So in this particular scenario, it's this. Jose tosses a ball into the air. The ball eventually comes down, so his friends can catch it. Jose and his friends have different ideas about why the ball is coming back down, and this is what they said. Jose thinks it's coming down because the earth is pulling it down. Eddie thinks it's coming down because it's running out of force. Lucy thinks it comes down because air pressure is pulling it down, pushing it down. And Dinah thinks it's coming down because no forces are acting on it at all. Who do you agree with most and why? And explain your thinking. This Page-Keeley probe activity is an opportunity for students to share their ideas about the natural and designed world. And it allows you to uncover some student misconceptions going into the lesson. Every chapter in our middle school program begins with this scenario. And one way to have students share their ideas is on what we call the sticky note strategy. It's one of about 20 different strategies we give students to be able to share their ideas. Here they put their answer and their explanation on a sticky note. In this particular probe, we posted up here on the upper right-hand corner of the board. And you see in blue, this represents April 15th. This is the beginning of the lesson. Looks like a lot of students thought A was the best answer. In this particular probe, A through G are possible answer choices. Not everybody chose A, but certainly a lot of the students, the majority of the students chose A. A week into the lesson, in purple, now they've come off of A quite a bit, haven't they? Now their answers are a little bit more evenly distributed, with a lot of students choosing B and D as possible answer choices. Now, 2 weeks into the lesson in yellow, now students are starting to think D is the possible, the probable answer choice. And this is how students' answers change, thinking change over time. Even scientists change their thinking as they get additional evidence. And students by now have had a few experiences, maybe done some experiments and had some research projects. And so we want students to think this way, and their thinking is constantly evolving. Every single chapter will begin with a probe. So let's walk through a middle school lesson, and we'll go into high school here in just a little bit. Every middle school lesson begins with an engage with the page activity. What's going on in that image? What are we looking at here? There are questions we want students to answer. What do you think those hair-like structures do? There's going to be a big idea or overarching question that we want students to be able to answer in this chapter. And what we call a get ready to learn activity. You can think of it as an anticipatory set, an idea to get, for you as a teacher, to get an idea of what students know and what they don't know before you ever get into the lesson. Maybe have a discussion about it. Whether you are a middle school teacher or a high school teacher, you're going to see vocabulary treated very seriously, not just new vocabulary. Every program has new vocabulary. But what about review vocabulary? How about word origin? So students can decode word meaning without our assistance. Academic vocabulary. We learned from Marzano a little over 20 years ago the importance of academic vocabulary, probably more important in science classrooms than any other classroom on campus. And how about science use versus common use? A word like envelope means one thing in the science classroom and another thing outside the science classroom. How about words like polar? Imagine a student coming out of social studies and associating the word polar with cold, or even bears. Polar means something completely different in a physical science lesson. The word film means one thing in Hollywood, something different in a life science lesson. As science teachers, I remember in my middle school classroom, I would use the word store. And I meant it in a science context, but what are my students probably thinking? They're probably thinking of a place to buy something. And why wouldn't they? We use all these words that fall into the science use versus common use category. Look for these opportunities to have a discussion about them in your lessons. And what we do in print, we always do in digitally. So vocabulary support, drag and drops. Here we see the term on the left. Just drag the visual image to match the term. There's the definition, whether it occurs in a plant cell or animal cell. These digital interactives will be in all different shapes and sizes. Here's one that's a crossword puzzle. Sometimes students work against the clock. Sometimes they work against other students. There's foldables embedded within the program. And what are foldables? Foldables are three-dimensional graphic organizers. They're a way for students to take notes and organize their ideas. We've been partners with foldables for about 20 years ago. Now they're used on every continent on the planet. And students that use foldables outperform students that do not. That's because it's a graphic organizer and it helps them study more effectively. What percentage of our students are visual learners? Well, research said about 65% of all of us are visual learners. We're the ones that dream in color. We circle, highlight, underline words. We always gravitated to those books growing up that had the most images in them. So we wanted to have a very image-rich, media-rich program. And if you're in the digital ebook, as a student, you're going to see some icons at the bottom of the page. These are links that you can go to some visual support. What kind of visual support are available to students? Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. In the top row, we call these concepts in motion. Those actually are from high school, our high school programs. And think of these as ways for students to hear and see science concepts more often than we have time to talk about them. We may only have time to go over a concept 2 or 3 times in class. That may not be enough. It may be the 4th or the 5th time, maybe said a different way with a different voice. And students all of a sudden have that aha moment. And that's what we want students to have. Concepts in motion do that. On the bottom left, you see Tim and Moby. They are characters in a video series called Brain Pop. We're exclusive partners with Brain Pop. And on the bottom right, you see a personal tutor. Mr. Douglas is walking students through a lesson on net force. These are just a few of the examples of resources that are linkable at the bottom of a student ebook. And if I was in a student ebook right now, here I'll see those links down here at the bottom. And any page I happen to be in, if I'm in a 1-page or 2-page or a 1-page view, I'm going to see those links at the bottom of the page, taking me to those resources that we just took a look at. So what ways can students get hands-on in our program? Let's start with middle school, and then we'll go to high school. Middle school, every single lesson begins with a launch lab. I used to call this ABC, activity before content, having students doing something very early in the lesson. Here we are at the beginning of the lesson, and already we're getting hands-on before we ever get into the narrative. Notice this launch lab only takes 15 minutes. Some take 10 minutes, even some 5 and some 20. The point is it's going to be a short experience, get in, get out. I find that starting with a hands-on opportunity makes everything that follows a little bit stickier. In the lesson, you're going to see mini labs, also short experiences. They're typically 2 per chapter. You're going to see math support, skills labs as well. These don't necessarily focus on content. They focus on skills like graphing and measurement and identifying and manipulating variables. So the skills we want students to have in our classroom. Do we still have the full period labs? Absolutely. Every chapter will end with one. Now that's in middle school. What about those labs that are too dangerous, too time-consuming, maybe too expensive to do in class? Those virtually in Glencoe Science. Like this one, we have crashing cars to determine how momentum is conserved in a vehicle collision. Students choose different vehicles and different masses, different speeds, and then we want to head-on or rear-end collision, and then we test it. See what the outcome will be at the end of it. They do this in real life, but you can do it in a virtual setting. Every chapter will have one virtual lab in middle school. And what about high school? What kind of hands-on experiences do we have there? Well, Every chapter begins with a launch lab. Remember, in middle school is every lesson. In high school, it's every chapter, but it has the same intent and purpose. Having students doing something before you ever get into the narrative. Are there mini labs in high school? Yes, there are. You'll find 2 in every single chapter. Data analysis labs are also part of the high school hands-on suite. Bio labs, small scale labs. And here you see a design your own lab. In design your own lab, students don't have a procedure like in most labs. They have a plan. We give them enough structure so they know what to do, but exactly how they get from beginning to end is up to them and their team. It's a little bit more open-ended. In fact, there's a lot of open-ended, guided inquiry opportunities, probeware labs, and even forensics labs or whodunit mysteries as part of our high school science program. Virtual labs as well, just like the one we saw in middle school, you have available in high school. In middle school and high school, you also have web quests. These are internet explorations, complete with a task, a process, web links that students know to go to get additional information, and a rubric so every student knows how they're going to be scored on these. As you're going through any of our programs, I want to alert you to some coding if you're new to the program. Notice that you'll see some little color-coded circles here. And AL always represents approaching level. The green circle, BL, always represents beyond level. And you'll see ELL for our English language learners. So AL, approaching level, BL, beyond level. Now, there's a couple tools you're going to find in middle school. You're also going to find it in biology and physical science. And one is called the Reading Essentials. On the right-hand side, I see a middle school student edition page. On the left-hand side, I see the Reading Essentials. So what's the difference? Well, it has these same headings. In fact, you'll see even the same subheadings. The difference is the Reading Essentials on the left is written about 2 to 3 grade levels below the edition on the student edition on the right. It also has opportunities for response along the way. So think of it as a write-in version of the textbook that's written below grade level. I know a lot of teachers that use the Reading Essentials instead of the student book for certain chapters. They just like the way it's presented. And they like for students to have the opportunity to share their thinking and their notes and collect data along the way. Another resource you see as a companion piece is the Science Notebook. It is for middle school. It's also for every high school science title. By that, I mean biology, chemistry, physical science, physics, and earth science. On the left-hand side, just the main idea, keep it very clean. On the right-hand side, the supporting details. The Science Notebook is built on the Cornell system for notes. It's a great way for students to take effective, organized notes that they can actually use when they're studying. There's a Science and Engineering Practices Handbook, and there's project-based learning opportunities. These are usually engineering challenges or research projects that students can do with teams. Here in this particular one, they're going to use the engineering design process to come up with a creative solution to a real-world problem. In this case, microbeads in our waterways. How do we get those microbeads out? They're in our body wash and exfoliates and soaps. In some countries, they're illegal. In other countries, they are not. And they get into our waterways, and they look a lot like fish eggs to fish, and they are ingested by fish, and that's toxic to them. How do we solve that problem? That's what students are going to do in this particular one that we're viewing. And then lastly, a test generator. We call it e-assessment. Create a test by standard. You can create a test by difficulty level if you'd like. You could print that test out. You could modify things like font size and font style and spacing between questions. Make it perfect and just print it out if you want to. But if you'd rather have students take that test on a device, you can do that as well. The benefit of students taking it on the device is that it gets scored for you automatically. And you can generate reports to see how students are doing on specific topics, and even an item analysis test. The test generator has different types of test questions, like a sequence of events like mitosis, what happens first, second, third, fourth. How about multiple response, where more than one answer could be correct? All of these are question types. You'll even find technology-enhanced questions, like this one, a drag and drop, where students are manipulating things on the screen. This is part of our test generator. It's available 6 through 12 in Glencoe Science. So enough with the overview. Let's take a look online for the rest of the time and see where all of these features are found. I'm going to toggle online here, and I'm going to go to my home site. So when you enter a class, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. And I'm in as a teacher. It says Teacher Center right here. And on this page, I've got an ebook. And by the way, your students have a location as well, and it says Student Center. We'll explore that in just a little bit. Otherwise, the page looks very similar for teacher and student, and both of you have an ebook here. If I open up that ebook, I'm going to see a screen that looks like this. And I have a 2-page view, and I have a 1-page view. The 2-page view is designed for you to quickly and easily move through the book, going to the pages that you want to go to effortlessly. The 1-page view is designed to really zero in on a specific location. Looks like it's freezing up on me here. Let me exit here and let me give this another try here. Open that up. Here we go. So the 2-page view, use it to quickly and easily navigate. But it's hard to see with a 2-page view. If you want to go to, if you want to see it closer, go to the 1-page view down here at the bottom. And now you can make it as large as you'd like. Okay. I can make this as large as I'd like. As a student, I have some tools. If I want to highlight this section, I can do it. I can click on a specific section, decide to highlight it. Let's say yellow. I can even make a little note for myself here. Ask Mr. Marshall if this will be on the test. Now I have a highlighted and annotated page. How do I know I have an annotation there? There's a little sticky note here. I come in a week later. I know I made a note to myself. I click on it. Oh, I better ask Mr. Marshall if this is going to be on the test. So this is a book that I can highlight. I can annotate. On the bottom, I have access to digital media that will support me. It looks like I have a video here that I can watch. Here's the brain pop that's available to me. So every given page has hyperlinks to resources that will help your students. Okay. And so that's what the ebook looks like for both teacher and student. And where is it available? It's available right here on my home screen page. Okay. But there's one button on the home screen page that is more important than any other page, and it's a really small location. It's up here in the upper left-hand corner, the menu button. It's your highway to everywhere you want to go in the program, okay? So if I open up that menu button, I have some locations here. Now, you're probably not going to use all of these locations daily, but I'm going to explain as many of them as I can. The one you'll use the most, or one of the ones you'll use the most, is resources. And the second one is probably plan and present. Excuse me, these two tools you'll probably use quite a bit. And you'll probably use assessment as well. Assessment is where I make my tests. So let's explore resources, let's explore plan and present, and let's explore assessment. We'll certainly get to those locations before we leave here today. I also want to show you some professional development support you have, and even this smart book activity, which I think we'll have time to do today. But let me start with resources. One of the first things I want to know when I enter a new program is, where's my stuff? Jason, where are my labs? Where are my videos? Where are my activities? Remember, you mentioned project-based learning opportunities, that microbeads challenge. Where is that located? Well, the resources location is where you find all your stuff. It's one of the locations where all your stuff is located. And so where did we find it? We went to menu and we went to resources, and here we are. So to find resources, we organize them by chapter and lesson. So the first thing I need to do is choose my chapter, and I choose it from this filter pull-down menu. The top one allows me to choose the chapter. So let's say we want to go into chapter 2, laws of motion. Okay. Once I've chosen the chapter, I get to choose what location in the chapter I want to go to. Do I want all of the resources to show up all at once? That's a lot. I would probably recommend not choosing this all location because everything will come up. But if you want to, you can. I'd probably narrow it down a little bit to chapter overview, or maybe the lessons or study guide. So let's start with chapter overview. Let's walk through the lessons and see what resources are available at each and every level. If I click on the overview location, so we're in chapter 2, laws of motion, second pull down menu, we chose overview. I've got a couple resources here, okay, and some really significant ones. Here we will say chapter resource files. These will give me the chapter resources for the entire chapter. Now, keep in mind that these chapter resources, it's a lot. It'll be over 100 pages. But if I don't want to see them all at once, I can always go to the lesson level, and there'll be a smaller amount just for that specific lesson. But just to give you an idea of how many are available at the chapter level, let's open this file. If I open this file, let's take a look at this first page. Okay. On the left-hand side, it tells me the type of resources that are available for this chapter. And then here at the top, we see lesson 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on the right-hand side, we say what students is it built, these resources built for. So for instance, this Get Ready to Learn activity, it's for all students. This Launch Lab, for all students. This Content Vocabulary activity, for all students. But this Content Practice A, it says AL. And what does AL represent? Approaching level. Remember, AL is approaching level. So this is for students that may be a little bit below grade level or not quite at grade level. That's what it was designed for. Key concept builders, also approaching level. So these are differentiated resources. And if I look here at the Launch Lab, is it available in every single lesson, the Launch Lab? Yeah, it sure is. Every single lesson has a Launch Lab. So this chapter resources file tells you the variety. Take a look at the great variety of resources you have throughout this chapter. It will tell you what lessons they're found in and what students they're designed to support. At this chapter resource file level, they're also hyperlinkable. So let's say I want to go to Content Practice A for lesson 2. Okay. Content Practice A for lesson 2. Can I just click on it? Yeah. And it'll take me right to Content Practice A for lesson 2. So these are hyperlinkable, printable resources that are differentiated for you at any time. Okay. Are already differentiated for you. You can see where they're designed to support, or who they're designed to support, I should say. And so here they are, chapter resources. Here's a PowerPoint presentation ready for me for the chapter. Here are color transparencies. Let's take a quick look at these. So if I open it up here and I look at the bottom of the page here, it says Bell Ringer Lesson 1. So what is a bell ringer? We've designed these bell ringers to be something you might use to have in students' hands as soon as they get in the classroom. Or you can make a transparency of this and have it on the transparencies if you still use that, or just project this on your Promethean board or your smart board. And students know every single day, hey, there's going to be a bell ringer for me. And I'm going to have get out a sheet of paper and answer these questions. The bell ringer gives you as a teacher an opportunity at the beginning of the class to take roll, get settled, get prepared for the next period. You know, you have to put some things away, get other things out. Gives you a few minutes because students are going to be on task for those few minutes considering this scenario. Every single lesson has a bell ringer. Every single lesson also has a content practice transparency. This is something you could also put on the board. It's designed to teach a concept. So we have lesson 1 bell ringer, lesson 1 concept transparency, lesson 2 bell ringer. Okay. Lesson 2 focus on the content transparency. Lesson 3 bell ringer. Lesson 3, focus on the content transparency. So every single lesson has a bell ringer and a focus on the content transparency. And here they are in my chapter overview location. If I continue to scroll down, here it says Page Keeley probe. Let's open that up. Remember that probe we took a look at earlier about the ball toss? Here it is. And can I print it out? Yes, I can. About Jose tossing the ball into the air, and 4 different friends have 4 different ideas of what's going on. And so that you know how to implement this probe, the last page will be teacher notes. The best answer is Jose. I think it comes down because the earth is pulling it down. And it'll tell you the science content background that you need to know going into the probe and what students might be thinking if they choose B or C or D or different choices other than the correct one. I would always start with this teacher notes section just to get a refresher on what's going on in this particular probe, because some might be easy like this. Others, you might need a little bit of a refresher just to be able to have a conversation about it. Now, the important thing about the probe is you don't want to give them the correct answer. This isn't a, hey, who gets the correct answer right or wrong? Let them share their thinking. Let them know that you're not going to tell them the correct answer. It's an opportunity for students to get a voice and share their voice at the beginning of every lesson. It's not about getting this question right or wrong. Now, can we revisit this at the end of the chapter and maybe get learn the right answer then? Yeah, at the end of the chapter, that's fine. But at the beginning of the lesson, do not give them the correct answer. Let them have a conversation about it. maybe get them in the groups to share their thinking with a classmate, or use one of our many strategies to implement these probes. And so where is this probe located? It's right here at the overview section. If you went into the lesson, you're not going to find it. You're only going to find it in the overview section. If we scroll down in overview, here's SmartBook, more on that a little bit later. And here are some answer keys available to me as well. So we have some pretty significant resources at the overview section. What happens if we go into a lesson? I'm going to go into lesson 3. How about Newton's second law of motion? And if I scroll down here, I have resources specific to this lesson. What's this PBL activity? What does that mean? That means project-based learning opportunity. That's one of those projects where students can use the engineering design process to come up with a creative solution to a problem, or build a device, or do something, have some kind of a challenge. And this one, they're going to build what is they doing here? A mousetrap card competition. And can these be printed out? Absolutely they can. The student pages are on the front. The teacher pages are in the back. Every one of these golden PBL opportunities are project-based learning opportunities. Now here I have my chapter resources at the lesson level. It's not so overwhelming now. I only have the ones for this particular lesson. I don't have lesson 2 or lesson 1, only lesson 3. And here are my resources at the lesson level, okay? Some of you might be saying, are these in Word? Can I edit these resources? Yes. So those same resources available in the PDF file are also available in a Word document file. So if I'd like to make some edits to these, I can. I could hyperlink to that resource if I want to. If I want to make an edit to any one of these, I could edit it and then save it for next year in Word document format. So resources in PDF, resources in Word document format. If I continue to scroll down here, I have a reading coach. It's a lower level read of the textbook. And notice how it's so much cleaner in the margin. We designed this reading coach for our lower level readers and also students that might like to annotate and make margin notes and suggestions over here on the left. So it's a cleaner page that affords the opportunity for students to take their own notes along the way. Same lesson, just formatted a little bit differently. Down here, there's a page 2. And in my page 2, what do I have? I have my reading essentials that I mentioned in the PowerPoint. It's a lower level read, but a little bit more supportive with graphic organizers. There's study coaches in the margins. There's questions to be answered in the margins. It's kind of like the reading coach, but with some support and opportunities for response. So for this lesson, Laws of Motion, I have the student edition. I have the reading essentials, which we're looking at now. And then I have the study coach, which is the reading essentials without all of this margin support, and a really clean, visually uncluttered page. And I could choose which resource supports any individual students, or I might like to use one of them for all of my students, which depending upon my instructional goals for that lesson. So that's the reading essentials. And down here is the science notebook. Okay, this is the Cornell notes. Main idea on the left, keep it very clean, just the main ideas. Indent and put the supporting details. And notice I always like this. I found this on page feature. So let's say I found this content on page 58. I could type in page 58 here. And now I know where to go back to get additional information on this topic. And it creates a nice interactive notebook, interactive note-taking experience for this particular lesson. Okay. So we've seen the overview section. We've seen a specific lesson section. What's in these locations down below lesson, like study guide? Well, in study guide, I'm going to see drag and drops. I'm going to see vocabulary support. Let's see what I'm talking about here. So here's a drag and drop concept map, forces, types between objects that touch. I'm going to say contact forces for that. Let me see if that's a choice over here at my bottom. Contact forces. Okay, let me bring that up here to here. And so students can put these locations where they think it exists here. So I'm going to continue here and put friction right up here next to here. And then at the end, I could check my understanding of this particular content. I have this concept map here. I have an e-vocabulary game here. So study guide usually involves vocabulary, and vocabulary gaming. If I just want some digital flashcards, I have those as well. Balance forces, that's the term. I click on the backside, I see the definition. So think of the study guide as not just a study guide, but also having vocabulary support. If I scroll down here, chapter review, what am I going to see? Some self-check quizzes. These are designed for students to kind of check their understanding. They have answer choices over here on the left, and they get a hint over here on the right. A tip, strategy, or suggestion to point them in the right direction. I would think of these as not assessments necessarily, but mainly self-check practice for students. I have standardized test practice. Let's take a look at it. And I also have additional chapter resources. It looks like it's empty for this particular chapter. So in chapter 2, I have a lot of locations, and don't forget about any of them. I have a chapter overview, I have lessons, study guide, and review for each and every single chapter that I have. So the resources section is my depot of resources. Now, is there another place I could find resources, Jason? And the answer is yes. Plan and Present gives you an alternative. And I know some of our customers love resources, and every day that's where they find them. I know other customers that choose to go to Plan and Present. So let me share with you how it's different. You can find the exact same resources. They're just organized and presented to you differently. So instead of those two pull-down menus to choose chapter and lesson, I start here, and I choose chapter and lesson this way. So let's go to that same chapter, chapter 2. And let's go to that same lesson. I guess I was in lesson 3. Let's go to that same lesson, just to see how these are different. Now, this looks a little bit different. Now I have my resources organized into digital file folders. And that's what I call these horizontal lines, digital file folders, because that's exactly what they are. I can open up a digital file folder. Let me open up Engage. And over here, I've got a resource that it says I might want to use in the Engage section. Okay. Can I open it up here? Absolutely, I can. I can open it up. Here's a little quick vocabulary activity. Let me close out Engage, and let me go to, let's say, Explain. Now here I have a bunch of resources in the Explain section. Now we've seen some of these resources, except here they're in digital file folders, where McGraw Hill is giving you a suggestion of where you might want to use them, like my Reading Coach. It has the Reading Coach in the Explain digital file folder, okay, in my Explain file folder. Now, what else is different here in the Plan and Present section? So not only does it give you the resources, it also gives you the Teacher's Edition support over here on the left. So all that stuff that's in the wraparound portion of the Teacher's Edition is all here on the left. Strategies to get students talking, questions that you could do, visual literacy, writing opportunities, all that stuff is here on the left. So I know a lot of our customers that say, man, in this Plan and Present section, I not only get the resources, I'll also get suggestions for their use in one place. I don't have to go anywhere else. And that's why they like this section, this location. Every single section will give you the resources and suggestions for use in one place. You don't have to take your Teacher's Edition home with you ever again. Why? Because your Teacher's Edition is right here in Plan and Present in handy little digital file folders, okay? So what have we learned so far? We know that the menu is the superhighway to everywhere you want to go in the program. And we've explored 2 of those locations. We've taken a look at the resources section. All of my resources are here. And I find them by choosing first the chapter that I want to go to. I'm going to go into chapter 6 this time. And then what location within the chapter? Do I want to go to the overview and find my transparencies, like my bell ringers, or take a look at all of my resources in the chapter? Or maybe I want to have that Paige Keeley-Prove conversation. Those are always going to be found in the overview section. Or do I want to dig a little bit deeper and go into a lesson? Lesson 1, solids, liquids, and gases. And here I'm going to find those editable Word document versions of the resources. I'll find my Reading Coach, my Reading Essentials, my Cornell Notes, we call it the Science Notebook. And I'll see videos and concepts in motion scattered throughout.
The states of matter are gas, liquid, and solid.
I'll find different videos
Gases assume
throughout the program. I'll find support all along the way. Okay. The second location, just as a review we went to, is Plan and Present. Same resources, just organized into digital file folders. Just a little bit different way of organizing those resources. Now, I see some questions in the chat. I'll stop for questions here in about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll try to get the answers to you before the end of the session. And thank you for participating in the chat. I saw one about environmental science. We have a brand new environmental science program for high school as well. So we've looked at the menu section, we've gone into resources, and we've gone into plan and present. Can I bring my own resources into McGraw Hill's platform? Yes, you can. There's a location called My Files, and you can upload new files from your desktop. So I could bring a file in here from my desktop and bring that right within this platform ConnectEd. Here are some resources that we brought in earlier. Okay. So we've seen resources, we've seen plan and present, which gives me my resources and my teacher's edition content. We've seen My Files. Last location I'd like to take you to, or one of the last ones, is assessment. Assessment is where I create tests from scratch. So here I have a test generator, okay? It's an icon that will look like this, and it's available 6 through 12. And by the way, everything that I shared in this middle school platform is the same in high school. You have a resources section, you have a plan and present section, and you have an assessment section, and that's where we're at right now. Your test generator looks the same. It's an icon that looks like this. And I'm going to open it up. And let's introduce you to this test generator if you haven't looked at it before. There are 3 locations in the test generator. There is the test generator, and here you see them in the upper right where it says section. Okay, 3 sections, 3 main sections. There's a test generator. That's where we're at right now. That's where you create the test. If you don't have a test yet and you want to create one, start here. The second location that's important is the classes and assignments section. That's where you assign the tests. So if you want students to take it digitally, you first have to create it, and then you have to assign it to your class. And that's where this is where you do it, classes and assignments. So you create it in the test generator, you assign it in classes and assignments, then the students are going to take it on their side. And once they've taken it, you can go to reporting to see how students have done on that test. So let's show all of these sections. Okay. So I'm going to start by creating a test. So let's start with the test generator to create a test. If you don't know where to begin in any location, it will typically give you some guidance here in the middle. So I want to create a test, and there's a location that says create a test. So I'm going to click on it. Okay. First thing I have to do is give this a title. So I'm going to call this ME Pop Quiz. Okay. That's the title of my quiz. That's what I'm going to call it for my file cabinet, for my digital filing cabinet. Where do I want it stored? I want it stored in my tests. And the last thing I have to choose is how do I want to build it? Okay. The first option is the quickest and easiest. It's selecting the questions randomly. I get to choose what chapter they come from and even what lesson they come from, but the computer is choosing the individual questions. So I might say, I need 10 multiple choice questions from chapter 2, lesson 2, and the computer will do the rest. I don't see the individual questions. That's option number 1. The second option is also random, but instead of question type, I get to choose difficulty levels. So I might say, I want 5 questions with DOK level 3, and I want 5 questions at DOK level 2 from this chapter and lesson, but the computer is choosing the individual questions. Okay. So the first 2 options, you're surrendering a little bit of control. You can choose the chapter and lesson, but you're not choosing the individual questions. The third option gives you total control. You get to choose everything. So let's start with this one random, and I'll do an empty one here in just a moment. So we've given the quiz a name. We've said where it's going to be stored. It's going to be stored in my test. And we've chosen how we're going to build it. I'm going to click next. What content do we want on this test? Here's where you go to your content. Now, I train a lot of different subjects, so I see a lot of different subjects on here. You're not going to see all of these. you're just going to see your subject. If you're a chemistry teacher, you're just going to see a chemistry folder here. If you're biology, you're just going to see biology. So just keep that in mind. I see a lot of stuff here. I'm going to choose Integrated Science Course 3, and I'm going to click on this arrow. Now I could choose the lesson. Okay, what lesson do I want to be a part of this quiz? How about Chapter 6? Okay, and I click on that button. Could I choose specific lessons in that chapter? Yeah, I could. If I just want to drill down to a specific lesson, solids, liquids, and gases, I could do that as well. But I'm going to choose the entire chapter. And I click Next. English or in Spanish? I'll just choose English for this quiz. Next. Now remember, all I get to choose is how many questions and of what type. I don't get to choose the individual questions. So I'm just going to say, how about 10 multiple choice? Next. That's how many questions I chose and of what type. And I click Finish. And I have my 10 question multiple choice test. Very quick and easy, okay? All I chose was the chapter I wanted them to come from, how many I wanted, and of what type, and the computer did the rest. I could look at these. Now, do I have to accept all of these? No, I don't. I could always change them a little bit. So let's say I don't like question 1. I can come over here to the left of the question, and I can delete that question. And it's no longer on my test, okay? Everything will get renumbered. Now, it looks like I may have deleted that entire test here. Let me go into my test here. I accidentally deleted the whole thing here. Let's go to ME Pop Quiz. Let me bring it back to the right. It's all empty here. Let me go into Practice Test, bring that to the right. So now we have a quiz here. I got rid of the whole quiz. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to go to a specific question. So if I go to a specific question, I can delete a question. Am I sure I want to delete that question? Yes, I am. Now everything gets renumbered. Let me do that again. I come over here to the left. If I don't like a question, I can delete it. And everything gets renumbered. What if I just want to edit the question? I come over to the left and I can edit the question. It will show up for me in a little template. And I can write something at the end. Remember what I said about this in class. Okay, so I just made a little edit to that and I click OK. And now it will add that little edit. So even though the computer is choosing the questions and of what type, I can still change this a little bit. And maybe I don't like this question here. I want to bring it to the bottom. I can bring it to the bottom. So you saw me edit or delete a question. You saw me edit a question, and you saw me move a question. So I've got some control after the fact. Okay. So we created a test by question type and how many we wanted. Now, if I exit out of here, did that test disappear? No, it still exists. It's over here in my test. And if I ever want to work on it again, I can come back to this practice test and bring it over here to the right. Let me go ahead and delete this empty test that I accidentally messed up here, that ME test, and let's just work with this practice test. So if you accidentally exit out of here, let's say you might create this test at a Starbucks or a cafe with internet access, and you don't have a printer nearby, but now you're at home and or at school and you're next to a printer. Just go to My Test, bring it back over here to the right, and now you can choose to go to File and print it out if you like. Okay, this test can be edited. I could change the question information, how many points there were. So I could do a lot of different things for this test. I could even add a question from scratch. And when I do, I get to choose what type of question. And let's say we want to add a multiple choice question. It will set up a template for me. And I could type in my question. The sun rises in the check mark is the answer, the correct answer. If I wanted to change the correct answer, I could always do that down here as well. Okay. And then I click OK. And now that's been made a part of this test. Okay. I exit out. Has it disappeared? No. It's in my folder, My Tests. Okay. So we created a test randomly. Let's create a test a different way. I'm going to go to create a new test, and I'm going to call this my pick and choose test. I still want it to be stored in my test, but instead of randomly here, I'm going to choose build a test, build an empty test. Here, I'm going to have total control. So I go to finish. Let's see what happens. We have an empty test. Nothing down here. All we have is a title to the test. So how do I get questions into this test? How do I choose the questions? Well, over here to the left-hand side, it says question sets. And again, you're not going to see all of these folders. You're only going to see the grade level that you teach. Okay. I'm going to go into this folder here. What chapters do I want to bring over? How about states of matter? Okay. Okay, what lessons? What lesson? How about solid liquids and gases? I open that up and I'll see all those test questions. Each one of those green dots represents test questions. Now you might be saying, oh, I can't see the entire question there. How can I see the entire question? Just put your cursor on the question and the whole question will appear. I like that question. I want that to be a part of this test. Now, how do I get it from the left over to the right into that empty space? If you're saying to yourself, click and drag, you would be correct. I just drag it over here to the right. Now I have one question in this test. Let's take a look at this test question right here. I like that one too. I'm going to bring that one over here to the right. Let me click and drag this over here to the right. Okay. Let's go to another question. How about this one? Short answer. Yep, I like that one. Now I have 3 questions. Let's continue to look here. See if we can find 2 more and make it even 5. This is a modified true false. I like that one. I'm going to bring that one over. And here's another modified true false. I'll bring that over. Now I have a 5-question quiz. It's called my pick and choose test. Okay. Can I edit test questions just like before? Yes, I can. I can come over here and I can delete questions. I can edit questions. Whatever I want to do to the test, I can do after the fact as well. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of a question. How about this one? Sure, I want to get rid of it. Yes, I am. So now I have 4 questions in this quiz, and I'm going to exit out. Did it disappear? Did I accidentally delete that quiz? No. Where is it stored? If you're saying to yourself over here in my test, you would be correct. There's my pick and choose test. Okay, and here's a test we made earlier. So we've created a test in the test generator. Okay, in the short amount of time we have together, I'm going to assign that test and take it as a student, or at least take a question or 2. Classes and assignments is where I assign that test. We created it in the test generator. We stored it in my test. Okay, so we're good to go there. Let's assign it. So I have to go to classes and assignments to do that. Now I'm in classes and assignments. And again, it'll always tell you in the middle what to do first. It says drag a class to this area to begin. Okay, I will. How about my 8th grade integrated class? I drag that over. I click new assignment. I give it a name. Now this is what my students will see. Okay, this isn't the name that's in my folder. This is what my students are going to see. And I'm going to say pop quiz for Tuesday. I select the quiz. Okay, which quiz do I want to give them? I want to give them my pick and choose test. That's the name that I gave it. Okay, so this is the name that they'll see. I chose the quiz I want them to take. Do I want this to be a recorded assignment? Yes, I do. Okay. I click next. Do I want all of my students to get this? Yes, I do. Can I delete certain students? I can if I wanted to, but I want all of my students to get this. Click next. I have some choices like number of times they can complete this assignment. How long will it be available to them? Do I want to give them a time limit? I'm going to give them a time limit on this one. Why not? How about 5 minutes to take this test once they start? Do I want to scramble it for all students? So every student gets a scrambled up version of the test. And notice what it will do. It will scramble the questions. It will even scramble the multiple choice answers within a multiple choice question. So I used to have some, I used to call them rubbernecks in my middle school classroom. Students that would look around, they'd kind of try to sneak a peek at their classmates' answers. And if you click on this box, they may see the same question, but the answers have been scrambled, so it won't do them any good. And so I can choose to scramble it for all of my students, okay? But I won't on this particular test. I click next, okay? What do I want them to see at the end of this assignment? A report or just the score? I'll just say the score. Click next. And again, more of what we want them to see. I'll just click next. And here are all of my choices, and I click finish. Now I have a pop quiz that's been sent to my students. We created it in the test generator, okay? We assigned it in classes and assignments, okay? Now I'm going to take it as a student. So I'm going to open up another window here. I'm going to go to my.mheducation.com, and I'm going to go to one of the students in my class. His name's Clyde. I go into Clyde's class. Here's his middle school class. Clyde has a screen that looks pretty similar to the teacher. Here it says Student Center. He has an ebook here. He has a menu section. Let's go to his menu section. And Clyde has a homework section here. In homework, one of his locations is due later. And in due later, that is here, there is his pop quiz for Tuesday. That's the one we just sent him. Let me click on it. When I click on it, he's going to see the instructions that you gave him. And he's going to see this pencil, paper, eraser icon. He clicks on that to get into the quiz. Am I ready to begin? Yes, I am. And notice I have my countdown. Remember, I gave him 5 minutes to complete this, and it's starting to count down for me. Clyde can answer by clicking on the pull-down menu, or Clyde can answer by clicking on the circle. The circle is part of. Okay. He goes to question 2 by clicking next or to question 2. Either way, it'll take him to question 2. Okay, I'm just going to choose A for this one. How about question 3? I'll choose true. How about question 4? I'll choose true here as well. Now, when I'm done, I click finish. Am I sure? Yes, I am. Clyde got 25% on this quiz because we only wanted him to see the score. So if I go back to my teacher side here, we created in the test generator, okay? We created new test. It got stored for us in my test. Now we wanted to assign it to our students, so we went to classes and assignments. We dragged a class over here to begin. We clicked on this new assignment button, and we created this assignment, pop quiz for Tuesday. We went in as a student just a moment ago and took that quiz. So now we're ready to go to our third location, reporting. And again, it says drag a class or student to this area to begin. Let's drag that class where Clyde is over. And I could generate a report. How about assignment results report? Click OK. For this quiz, yes. And then it'll give me a report to show me how my class is doing. Only Clyde took this test, so we only see Clyde here. He scored a 25. It'll tell me when he started it, when he finished it, or the start time rather, and how long it took him. It took him 51 seconds to complete this test. Okay. I can even do an item analysis report, which is kind of cool here. I'll go to question item analysis, click OK, and OK again. And it'll tell me, imagine if I had 30 students taking this quiz, or 100. Clyde got number 1 right, but he didn't get 2, 3, or 4, or 5 right. So let's say it said 100 here, maybe 75 here, 80 here, but down at number 4, it said 10%. Oh my goodness, 10%. My class is performing terribly on question 4. Why is everybody scoring so poorly on question 4? And then you could take a look at it and go, oh, okay, maybe I need to spend a little bit more time on it tomorrow. This item analysis report will tell you which questions, how students are performing on individual question types, okay? and also their student answers to the right. So again, you create the test in the test generator, you assign it in classes and assignments, and once students have taken the test, you go to reporting to see how they scored. And all of this is available in our test generator program, which is this location right here, found in the assessments location down here. So in summary, we're at the end of my time, so let me just kind of review what we've had time to cover today. This is your home screen. You have an ebook on your home screen. The superhighway for the program is the menu button in the upper left-hand corner. Resources will take you to your resources. They're organized by chapter and lesson. And don't forget you have these other locations as well, like overview, study guide, but here they're organized by chapter and lesson. The second location was plan and present. All of those resources are here as well. They're just organized a little bit differently. In fact, they have an additional level of organization. In the resources, I only could drill down to the lesson. In plan and present, it's telling me within the lesson, within the 5E lesson model, where McGraw Hill suggests you might use it. Just a suggestion. You might like the reading coach anywhere in the lesson and not in explain. But it just gives you a suggestion with Teacher's Edition content to the left. Menu, assessments will take me to my test generator. Here's my test generator we just took a look at. It's available 6 through 12. Again, you create the test in the test generator. Always look to the middle location to give you guidance if you don't know where to click next. Once we've created it, it gets stored in my tests. If I want students to complete it digitally, I go to classes and assignments, and I drag that class over here to begin, and I click new assignment. Once they've taken it, I'm ready to see how they scored. I go to reporting. Again, I drag this class over to this area, and I have all of these reports available to me to see how my students performed. I want to thank you so much for this time, and I'm going to click on the chat to see what questions we have. Sarisha, are there any questions that have come up?
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Let's see here.
I wonder if you saw the question around in the plan and present, when we click on the presentation needs some other extension, and the presentation won't work. Can you share which extension should be installed for work? I can help you with that, Ashia. If you can let me know, I'm dropping my email for you. If it's an extension problem, then that's a Sarish question. So I can help you with that. Just hang on, I will write my email address for you. It's more of a technical one. And I saw one in the chat box, which was, where can we find the effective STEM projects for chemistry grades 9 to 12?
STEM projects. Let's take a look here. I have middle school up and running. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get into high school here. Give me just a moment. My science 3. Okay, so I'm in high school now. And let's say, was there a particular content area, chemistry, biology? Let's go to
Chemistry.
biology. Chemistry. Okay.
Yes,
let's go
chemistry 9 to 12 STEM project.
Okay. Let me go to Connected here. Let's go into chemistry here. I know our Inspire Science program has those STEM projects. What you're going to find at high school. Okay, if I was to click STEM, I'm not going to see any results. What you're going to find here, though, is there are some of those PBLs, or project-based learning experiences, just like we saw in middle school. They'll have that golden button. And see if I can find one here for you here. And those are our STEM projects for our high school titles, those PBLs. Inspire Science, we have what's called specific STEM unit projects. But in Glencoe Science, those are those project-based learning experiences. And they're called PBLs. I'm not finding one here, but I'll keep looking. Srish, any other questions that have come up while I'm looking?
There's another one that says, what's your edge from other providers?
What's our edge? Well, if you're in the evaluation stage and you're considering us between some other programs.
Yes, that's the question actually.
Yeah, so if you're considering Glencoe Science, which this session is all about, I would say the edge is clearly the quantity, quality, and variety of resources and options you have as a teacher. So in this session, what we saw those chapter resources. It had leveled labs for students approaching level, on level, beyond level. It had challenge opportunities, enrichment opportunities, content practice for students approaching level, on level, beyond level, school to home projects. It had project-based learning opportunities, web quests. The sheer volume and quality of choices and options you have to address the needs of every student in your classroom is what I would consider the edge of our program and what separates us between us and some of the other programs. As a teacher, I like to have a lot of choices. I like to pick the resource that I think will address the needs of today for all students or the specific needs of individual students. And that's where Inspire Science really kicks in. And so here's an example, back to that previous question, example of one of our challenges. We don't call them STEM projects, but these are some sort of a challenge. Students have to go in, use the engineering design loop to come up with a solution to a real world problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I hope, Christina, that answers your question. Are there any other questions for Jason? I don't see anything else, so I'm just repeating. If you have any question at all, let us know. Oh, Christina says, yeah, thanks. Glad that was helpful.
Excellent. All right.
Okay, I guess that brings us towards the end of the session now. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Jason, for your time. I appreciate it.
Always good to be with you all.
Okay, then have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.